Hello and welcome to Back at Camp, Mojave County's only outdoor television show. I'm your host, Don Martin, and on today's show, we got two special guests. We got Shane Moline and Tina, and they are the winners of the Kingman Bass Club's Fish-Off for 2011. They're going to tell us how they won that tournament. Also, Shane and Tina are going to give us some tips on how to fish for largemouth bass on these cold winter days. So don't go away. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Back at Camp. I'm your host, Don Martin. With me today, I have the winners of the Kingman Bass Club's Fish-Off for 2011. I'd like to introduce Tina Kennedy. Hi, Tina.
Hi, Don.
Shane.
Hi, Don.
Moline. Now, you guys were the winners of the Kingman Bass Club's team tournament, the Fish-Off last year, or for 2011, down at Lake Havasu. What was the format, and how'd you guys end up going to this tournament?
Well, it's a qualifying event, and qualifications are simple. You fish 7 of the 9 tournaments, and you're in.
For the club?
For the club schedule.
No matter where you finish?
Yeah, no matter where you finish. The criteria was just 7 of 9.
Okay.
And we fished exactly 7 of 9. Through our other schedule conflicts, we weren't able to make all of them.
Right.
So we qualified for it, and it was in November of last year.
Okay. And it was down Lake Havasu.
Yeah.
That's your favorite lake?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Yeah, anybody who knows this guy knows it. When he fishes, things get real tough try to fish for second place. So you and Tina went down there, did a little pre-fishing to find out what was going on.
We spent basically a week preparing and practicing for this tournament.
Okay.
We spent 4 practice days on the water, and then we had the 2 tournament days.
So now this is in November. It's starting to get a little cool down there.
We did encounter a storm front that blew through Friday before the tournament started.
Okay, and this is a 2-day event.
2-day event, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, so just so people understand, when you're fishing a tournament for the club, how many fish can you as a team weigh in?
Together we can weigh 5 fish. We weigh our best 5 fish.
Okay, and who fishes front of the boat?
We switch, but mainly I fish the front, control the front, but we switch back and forth. If I needed to tie on a bait or re-rig something, she'll jump up there and take control.
Right. So basically he's got you stuck on the back.
That's where I like to be, Don.
Yeah, but you catch fish though.
Well, yeah, I do.
Well, so I mean, hey, it's a team tournament. That's why they call it a team tournament. You're both fishing. So it's your best 5 for the day.
Yeah.
So first day Saturday.
First day Saturday, we had a great practice the last couple days with that front just starting to come through. Friday was one of those days when we could have caught 30, 40 fish.
Wow. I
mean, it was just on fire. We weren't catching them. We did take one brief period and we took our protectors off our hooks and we got into them good. But it was an area we weren't going to fish. So Saturday rolls around. We kind of really had it dialed in, knew where we were going, knew what the fish were doing. We stayed fairly late on Friday, and so we knew nothing had really changed.
Okay.
And it didn't take long Saturday morning.
How long did it take you?
40 minutes and we were calling fish already. We had our 6 fish in 40 minutes.
40.
So we had to
40
stop.
minutes.
We had to stop and start calling fish.
So now, for people that don't know what culling fish means, that means if you catch a bigger one, then you look in your live well, you know what your smallest one is, and as long as the fish you've got right here is bigger than the one down there, you take it out and go, and the little guy goes back.
It was so fast that morning, I don't think Tina fished. I mean, I was just handing her the net. She'd net it, I'd hand her the fish, she'd tag it, put it in the well, and I'd be net, net, net again. And so by the time we got to the 6th fish, you have to stop. You can't make another cast until you've called out one of your smaller fish.
Right.
And that's per tournament rules. Even though in the state of Arizona, we could have kept fishing, but tournament rules state that.
Says you can't have more than 5 in the
Once you
live
catch your 6th fish, you have to stop fishing. Both participants have to stop fishing, call their smaller fish, and then they can begin.
Okay, so I guess the question that I'd want to know is, what the heck were you throwing?
We were throwing spinner baits to start off the morning with.
Right.
And I just put the trolling motor on high and would just parallel on the bank. And it wasn't giving her much of a shot, but we had seen this bank on Friday, and I mean, there was just fish after fish on this bank.
And you were actually up in the river now.
We started in the river that day. We had a little spot up in the river that was just loaded with fish. We thought it would hold out for the whole tournament. It held out for 3 days of practice.
Okay, all right.
And but due to the fact that the fish weren't the size we wanted, the fact that the size, being that they were smaller, we had to make a change.
Right.
And after we had that, it kind of took a little pressure off.
So you got your limit in the boat, and now you're thinking, okay, how are we going to upgrade this thing? Tina, when you're fishing back there and you're behind the fishing machine and he's screaming, fish on, get the net, fish on, get the net, kind of cuts down your fishing time.
Which is okay. I don't care as long as we put fish in the boat. That's all that matters.
And he's talking about you were paralleling the boat, so or the bank. What were you? I mean, were you essentially just he was catching them so fast? You're just.
For the most part, that is how it went early in the morning. Absolutely.
So, in less than an hour, you guys are thinking, okay, we got our fish in the boat. Now we got to look at, now we got to upgrade and see what we're going to do here. So,
Yeah.
what did you guys decide to do then after you've got this limit of fish in the boat and you're sitting there and you've got 8 or 9 hours left? What are you going to do now?
Look for bigger fish.
Yeah.
Now, you had found in your practice, you knew some areas you thought might hold some bigger fish.
We had probably 3 different groups of fish, 3 different types of patterns going. So what we did after we did that is it was obvious to me that the spinnerbait was going to catch the fish, but they were going to be the smaller fish. Mm-hmm. So we put the spinnerbaits down and we went to a pig and jig, which is this right here.
Wow.
And we went in and started flipping some tight cover.
Okay.
And we called up quick. I mean, we caught our big fish and we started calling up real quick.
Now, that spinnerbait, a spinnerbait is a reaction bait. I mean, that thing comes flying past those fish. They look at it, they think it's a school of shad or some kind of bait fish, and it's just a reaction. They just smack into it.
Yeah.
Now, this bait, when you're pitching a jig and pig, that's a whole different concept, and you're targeting fish that aren't necessarily aggressive or in the feeding mode. What does this thing do?
Well, the fish that we'd found these fish in a bay, I think it was the first or second day of practice, and it's an area that I'd fished before, and I knew as the fall hit and the colder weather hit, those fish are going to pull out of that bay, and that's what they did. They pulled out of this bay and did some thick cover. But I knew they weren't really wanting to eat, so that's why I went with a slower presentation, pitch it into dark holes, and just sit there and shake it, and almost force feeding them. They sit in front of their face, and the tentacles are moving, and the bait's moving, it's up and down, and it's almost like a reaction bait. You're almost force feeding them.
Right.
And so once we knew where they were at, we went in there and we just worked a bank maybe no longer than 80, 90 yards for the next 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Now, Tina, what's that thing imitate? What's that supposed to imitate out there? I mean, I've been fishing a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen anything that looks like that. So what are you trying to do when you're pitching out in those dark holes? What are you trying to imitate?
Honestly, I don't use that bait. So.
Oh, you don't? What do you throw?
I throw
Gets
it, yeah.
Oh, so you're throwing a Gidset, he's throwing his jig and pig. So Shane, what's this thing imitate?
It's a craw type bait. I mean, you can trim this thing a certain way. If you trim it at an angle down like that, you can make it imitate a shad and swim it. But what I was doing, I was imitating a craw. And when it sits there like that, these are the pinchers, and these are the tentacles.
Okay, raise that up so we can.
So it sits in the water like this, and those float. And so they sit there and they look like the tentacles of a craw in a defensive mode.
So that lead head on the end is causing it to set on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so this is
like such.
And that is a defensive position of a crawdad. As he looks up and he sees like a bass, he's got his flippers up there going, warning him, hey.
And in the heavy cover, when you're fishing the heavy cover, when you lift it, you're not pulling it towards you because you're always looped over something. So that bass, this is hanging over, that bass comes down and you pop this up, it's almost an intimidating stance that craw's taken, and the largemouth just reacts.
He just grabs it.
And he doesn't move in those situations. He doesn't move and swim off like normally. He just grabs it and sits there. So then the next time you lift to go to shake,
it's heavy?
Stopped. No, it's just stopped. So a lot of times you set the hook and it's nothing. You've hooked a limb or something, but you just have to set the hook.
Well, hook sets are free.
Yeah.
But when you miss a big fish, that could cost you some money.
It's disheartening when you're sitting there and you think, oh, I feel something, and you don't, and then all of a sudden you see a fish swimming out, and your jig's in his mouth, and just before you set the hook, poof, there goes the jig.
Yeah, you spit it.
So
this is called a jig and pig.
Jig and pig.
That jig is something you make.
Yeah, this is a homemade jig that I make.
Right.
I bought the mold, but then I modified it to put my style hook in it that I wanted.
What do you put in there? What kind of hook?
This is a 5/0 hook. It's made by Mustad. It's a wide gap. I actually widen it and I roll the barb down because the barb sticks way out on these, and I roll the barb down for better penetration and less tearing on the fish's mouth. I use a really fine weed guard. I only use a 28 count weed guard. It's a medium stiffness. I don't want it to be too stiff because we're not fishing a lot of entangled type tree brush stuff. We're fishing more tules, light limbs, and this thing I can finesse through the trees real well, and I don't lose very many fish.
Okay. And then now that your colors, what's the significance on colors?
Well, purple and brown, ever since I started fishing, just everyone around here throws purple. I mean, and if you look at a lot of the bait fish, the hues on the shad, the hues on the craw are purple. You can
wow.
you can have a blue clawed craw like on Mojave, you'll still have a purple hue to them. I think it has to do with the clear water we have. Now on Havasu, you know, the shad just have a incredible pearl hue to them, and so and it's in the purple color, and so purple's just been a great color in clear water. Now once we go to dirty water, I start changing colors.
Oh, so this purple and brown combo that you use. You're fishing the river in Havasu, above Havasu, and in Havasu, where the water is actually pretty clear.
It's very clear, yeah.
Okay, so and you think that this, and I'm sure that you've tried different color combinations?
I have. I've gone neutral. I've gone to green pumpkins. I've gone with the pumpkin seeds. I will go to those more or less if I find the fish feeding on the brim. I'll try to match that hatch, but more than not, 90% of the time, that's what I'm throwing.
Well, those bass down there, they're feeding on those pumpkin seeds, and they got the sunfish and down there. So that's when you would, if you could see that the fish were feeding on those bait fish rather than shad, then you could change in that green pumpkin seed, which more imitates that color.
Yeah, and also if I find them out on the edges more to where they're in ambush spots. You know, when we were on this flip bite, they weren't eating. They were just hunkered down. They just moved out. They're trying to get comfortable. They're a little spooky. So I go in there with the most natural presentation to them.
Right. Now, when you say flipping, how do you actually present that lure to them?
There's two ways. I mean, a lot of guys will stay maybe, I don't know, 20 feet off a bank and pitch, where you kind of float the bait in there. They were in really tight holes, and we were dropping the jig in holes about like that, you know, not real big.
Wow.
So I'm actually,
3 inches. So
yeah, I'm actually,
2 and 3 inch.
you know, like this, feeding it in there like 5-6 feet away.
Right.
And when you set the hook, there's no reeling. You set the hook, you bring them out of the cover, you fight them, and then she nets them.
She nets them. Wow. So, and after you got through that spinnerbait bite, and you're going to this, now how many fish do you catch with that?
I don't know how many fish we caught. I know we called up 2 or 3 times, and we did catch our big fish.
What was your big fish that day?
369.
Wow, that's a good fish.
It's a tree. A funny story is it's a tree, and I told her I'd caught a big fish off that tree before in a tournament, and I told her, I said, this is a tree where I caught a big fish. So I flipped in there, and I said, I did it just like that, and it went thunk, and I set the hook, and it was our big fish.
Wow. Folks, when we come back, we're going to talk to Shane and Tina some more about their exciting win down there on Lake Havasu, and then Shane's going to tell us about how to catch these cold winter bass. Now, they're hard to catch, and he'll tell you that, but he'll tell you how you can catch them. So don't go away. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Back at Camp. With me today is Tina Kennedy and Shane Moline, arguably one of the hottest teams on the Colorado River. They're talking about bass fishing and talking about a Kingman Bass Club tournament, a fish-off that they won. When we left, we were talking about different baits and different, things that you do. That day one, when you went into weigh-in, where were you guys at? We
were sitting in first. Prior to weigh-in, we actually ran down into the lake and finished our day in the lake and called out a couple more times.
So how much did you end up with?
We ended up with 1373
for 5 fish.
Yeah, for 5 fish.
Okay, so now we're going to roll into day 2, and you know things are going to change.
Yeah, we were coming back each night, coming back to Kingman and staying at the house, and going down on day 1 or on day 2, the morning of day 2. I told Tina, I said something's changing, something's not right. I mean, with the storm moving out, the clear boot skies coming in. And then there was another front coming in that afternoon. I said, I think we're going to see some changes.
And so that's going to require that you modify your presentations and how you're doing this, right?
Yeah, so what I figured is the fish that we had caught flipping the jig the day before, I figured they were going to move. And so that morning we started in an area where I thought they would move to, and it didn't pan out.
Tina, how many fish you guys catch on day 2 that morning?
Not very many. We ended up with 2 in the morning.
And they weren't lunkers?
No, they weren't.
So things are looking pretty tough till the afternoon. That tournament's over at what time?
It was over at 3 or 3:30, somewhere in there.
So now here it is, 1 o'clock, and you've got 2 dinks in the live well.
Well, it's about, we caught a 13-incher at 10:30. We ran all the way up the river quite a ways and off of a bank that had some trees on it, and I cranked up a 13-inch fish. Like I say, we're starting to switch tactics because we know things are changing. And at that point, I just determined that the river is not the place to be. I thought maybe we could get a small limit, do that. We had a lead the first day. I wanted to secure a limit.
Right.
We decided to run down to a pattern that we had not really practiced a lot, but I know is a pretty solid pattern in the fall there. And we spent about an hour and a half on that. And we had a couple short fish, but nothing.
So now you decided it's time to head back to the lake and go down south.
Yeah, we headed down south, and we had a spot we'd found the first day in practice. And we didn't catch no fish that day, but it was loaded with a lot of good fish.
And it's on a grass bed.
It's on a big grass bed, a real big grass bed.
So you guys, you know, here it is. You got a couple hours left in the tournament. You know, yeah, you're in the lead after day one, but you know if you only go in with 2 fish, you're in trouble.
We're not going to win.
You're not going to win. So down south you go.
Yeah.
Hit this grass bed, and what'd you do?
Third cast, I caught a 3.5 pounder.
So that made you feel a little better.
And when I caught him, he ate the bait so hard that his mouth was pinned and it didn't even fight. So not only did I know they were there, but I knew we had the right bait and the right style and the right color.
So now you both are just ripping and tearing.
Yeah, in the next couple hours we caught 8 fish.
And they were all
solid, good fish, and we called up real fast to 15 pounds.
You had 15 pounds on that second day?
The second day, yeah.
Wow, that's a good average.
Yeah.
That's a solid 3-pound average, and that's any tournament where you're weighing 3-pound fish, you're in good shape.
We'd have liked to have stayed, but another participant in the tournament had broke down. And so they called us at about 2:30 and asked if we could come get them. Well, they were all the way up at the mouth of the river. So we packed up, put all our stuff away, and we ran all the way up there and picked them up.
You got 15 in a live well, it's going to take a monster catch by somebody else to
Well,
to
not
get
only
you.
that, but, you know, it's kind of, you know, when someone breaks down, you do what you can.
Oh, yeah.
They called and said they had a good bag of fish, and they didn't think they could make it. They were idling, but they didn't think they could make it. And so, you know, we figured we were blessed. So we hung it up, and we went and got them.
And you brought them in.
Brought them in. They were able to weigh their fish. They actually won big fish that day.
Oh, wow.
So they made a little
So that
cash.
cost you, that might have cost you there.
No, we didn't have.
You didn't have
there was a couple bigger than ours.
So you end up with 15 something on the second day.
Yeah.
And so how's it turn up?
Well, we won the tournament. We were big fish on the first day, and they had a small standard club-sized tournament inside the fish-off tournament, so we were able to win that and the fish-off tournament same day.
Now, so basically, other than not winning big fish on Sunday, you guys won everything that was there to win.
Yeah.
What? You
Other
made a
than
little money,
second
did you?
and third and fourth places, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we did. We cashed about $1,700 worth of checks.
that was a pretty good tournament then.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now here it is, January. It's freezing cold. We're about to freeze to death. I'm sure if we had water in here, there'd be ice floating around. So you still out there bass fishing?
Yeah, we've been fishing. We started back up first weekend of the year, and getting ready for this year, and we've been out there every weekend since.
Okay, catching fish.
It's been tough. It's been tough, but we've been catching them, but not like what a lot of people are catching them right now.
So some people are catching a lot of fish?
Yeah, they're having some pretty good turnouts down there. Some pretty good weights.
Down at Havasu.
At Havasu, yeah.
Now, what people don't understand is fish are cold-blooded animals. So as that water gets cold and stays cold, they become very lethargic. They're not feeding a lot because they don't want to waste energy. Spawn's coming. It's going to be here in another month, 2 months max. It'll start going. So these fish are basically in a no-do-nothing mode. So how are you going to catch largemouth bass on the Colorado River January and February? How are you going to do that?
Well, the way I look at it is if you have to present a meal that they'll gain more energy than spend more energy to eat it.
Right.
I like a lot of suspending jerkbaits. We have an X-Wrap, and then we have a Lucky Craft. These are 2 of the baits that we like to throw. This is a brand new color that Gary Dobbins, the mastermind behind Dobbins Rods, has created for Lucky Craft, and I can't wait to start throwing it. I just picked this color up. Normally I throw a ghost color or an alu color, but throw this over wintering type areas, staging areas even for the spawn, and it's very slow. Twitch, twitch, pause for a while, and then you just...
So this is not one where you're going to throw and just crank it back. You're going to throw it, twitch, twitch, and then you're actually going to just stop.
You just stop, I mean, sometimes for 10, 15 seconds.
And what's this do to the bass? What are the bass looking at?
Well, the way I look at it is the bass are looking at it, and they see the meal. I mean, there's clear waters. They feel it. They see it. And they're, instinctual. They're thinking, can I eat it without spending too much energy?
Right.
And if it's moving too quick, they're not going to go after it. But if it looks up there and they see it and it's wounded and it's stationary, a lot of times they swim up to it. And they don't just run up and eat it this time. They swim up to it. You twitch, twitch, you pause, and then they come up and they eat it. Catch a lot of fish on the back hooks.
So they think this thing is injured or something's wrong with it, that it's not able to just dart away from it like it normally would.
Yeah. A lot of times with these baits, I mean, a school of shad is a school of shad. You get a single shad in open water.
He's in trouble.
And the fish know that. They know something's wrong. Why is that out here? And so why is that fish up in the water column and not down here where all the other shad are? Right. So they key in on it.
So they're able to determine that instinctively that their primary feed, which is shad, they stay in groups for protection.
Yep.
So when they see one off there swimming by itself and it's acting a little erratic, they sense that there's something wrong with it, and now it's an easy meal.
Now they're going to start looking at it and they're start working towards it.
So you're going to throw this. Tina, you throw these things?
Yeah, I do throw those.
And how do you work?
I try to work it the same as he does. I don't have as much success though.
And you do the same twitch, pause.
Uh-huh.
And what kind of rod and reel do you throw on this?
Actually,
your jerkbait rod's a G Loomis.
Okay.
She's throwing a G Loomis. It's a 6-footer, trying to match her height because you get rod tips down
She's
at the water
6 foot?
level. No, but I don't want to throw anything less because you can't handle a fish in open water.
Oh, okay.
So your rod tip's down by the water, and you don't want to be dragging the water.
Okay, so when you're fishing this, you're not doing this.
No, you're down low.
Yeah.
You're down by the water level.
Yeah.
Doing that.
And this time of year, you're doing more twitching than jerking. They're called jerk baits, but you're doing more twitching. You're just trying to get that bait just kind of moving a really subtle, close-knit type walk. You don't want to darting all over the place because that's not naturally any time of year when the water's 48 degrees.
Right, and that's cold.
Yeah.
So what kind of line, what weight line do you throw that
I
on?
think I use 12-pound test line.
10 or 12, depending on what we're fishing, depending on how deep we're fishing. The lighter the line down to about 8 pounds is the deeper that bait will come down in the water column. So we match that. You know, if we graph fish at certain depths or we're fishing certain depths, we'll match our line size.
Are you fishing that near brush or any kind of structure?
No, I do. Yeah, I fish it a lot. You got to be much more precise in your casting, and you got to be willing to hang up a little bit. But yeah, but this time of year, it's typically over, you know, offshore, over rock bars, rock points, ditches.
So this is not like when you're up in that tangled stuff and you're throwing into little pockets. You're out there, you're throwing out where you're fishing down over submerged structure, and you're actually coming over the top of it.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're fishing those. How about that pig and jig? Is there anything you?
You know, you can be. You know, you get up in the rivers, and then Havasu has the lower river, the Bill Williams, and it has the upper river. We're trying to stay out of the river this time of year, trying to focus more on the lake, a little bit better fish.
So you're looking for rock bars? And
yeah, we're fishing a lot of rock bars. The last couple of weekends, we've been fishing a lot of ditches, trying to find these fish at the bottom of the ditches. And, you know, we've been throwing these new baits out called the A-rigs, and it's something that sleep in the country. And we've been slow rolling those in the bottom of ditches, and we've been having some success doing it.
Show us what those are.
This is an umbrella type rig, and it's got 5 baits on it. It's per state law, we only have 2 baits with hooks in them. All these others are what we call dummies, and there's no hooks in them. They just have keepers so they stay on the rig. And it runs through the water like this. You know, obviously the water will hold it spread out, and what it imitates is a school fish.
Okay. And this imitates the threadfin shad. Yeah,
this is the threadfin shad. We've tried to match the hatch, as they say. This is actually called a Tennessee shad, and it's just basically got a little blue back to it.
Okay. And this is a Colorado River Lake setup. I mean,
yeah.
You can use that in any of the Mead, Mojave, Havasu.
Yeah, you can use it anywhere. What we found is they do hang up easy. So
you got to throw them on heavy stuff.
Yeah, I throw it on 20-pound test Iser line, and makes it. You don't get quite the casting distance, but I'm not converted to the 65-pound power braid because of the clear water.
Tina, what you throw? This is yours.
Mm-hmm.
What do you throw that on? Hold that up for us. Show us what you're throwing.
I actually throw it on one of his rods. It's a little bit longer, and
it's a little lighter line because this is a lot lighter bait. This is more of a finesse. And
you want to throw this in open water where there's not a lot of obstructions in.
Yeah, and this one I've actually been working around some structure because I can control the casting. This one you just kind of heave it, and where it lands, it lands. This one I can actually kind of feather it as it lands in the water. And if you get it moving right away, it just almost looks like the school shad hit the surface and come back down.
Oh, okay.
So we've been throwing this around structure. This is a new finesse rig we started fishing last weekend. We haven't caught any fish on this one yet. We've had a couple bites on it. We think they hit the dummies on this one, so I've kind of altered it a little bit, trying to get them to key on these. If you can see, I've put eyes on the bottom ones with the hooks, just some sort of a key point.
Right. Just change it a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean they're always going to hit the oddball.
Right.
So
cool.
We've just been kind of playing with that one a little bit.
Okay. Folks, that's all we have time for today on Back at Camp and with Shane. I want to thank Shane. Shane, thank you so much. Tina, thank you so much. Good luck this year. Folks, they've told you what these lures are and how to fish them. If you want to catch largemouth bass, these are the champs. That's what you ought to be doing. Till next week, this is your host, Don Martin, telling you, keep your firearms oiled, your fishing line fresh, and we'll see you back at camp.